Hi, I'm Sam from Interface. We are BITRIX24 Gold Partners. Thank you very much for joining. Okay, so first of all, we'll just go through an introduction. So I'm Sam Connor, Sales Manager here at Interface, and we are BITRIX24 Gold Partners based in the UK, the US, and Hong Kong. And we offer a full range of services to assist you with BITRIX24. So starting off with pre-sale support, so we can analyze your requirements, see if BITRIX24 could potentially be a good fit for you. If it is, we can then help to implement BITRIX so we can really design out the system so it's built exactly how you need it to work. And if you're looking for hosting, if you're looking at the on-premise, we can provide our hosting service, and we also can provide training and ongoing support to ensure you maximize the value that you get from your BITRIX24 system. Okay, so in today's session, we're going to be looking at the business processes within BITRIX24. But first of all, let's just take a look. If you're coming to evaluate BITRIX24 at a higher level, we'll just discuss what BITRIX24 is, first of all. So BITRIX24 is a collaboration suite of well in excess now of 40 different tools that you can use to help you to manage your business. Now, there are over 15 million businesses now around the world that use BITRIX24, and it's available in two different versions. So we have the BITRIX24 Cloud, and we have the BITRIX24 self-hosted solution. And then in terms of pricing, so prices start from $49 a month. That's the basic cloud license, or the self-hosted, starting with the Business 50, is priced at $3,590 for the first 12 months. And then in year 2 and ongoing annually, on the renewal of an on-premise, you pay a 50% renewal fee to continue to access this system. Okay, so today's webinar is all about business processes. So we're going to be looking at the different types of business processes that we have available within BITRIX24. So what we will be doing today is going through all of the different features that we have access to on our business processes. But first of all, I just want to discuss the different types of business processes that we have. So first of all, we have a sequential business process. So let's just take a look here. This is a sequential business process. A key area with a sequential business process is you have a predefined start point, as we can see here, which then takes us down to a predefined end point. So you have the whole workflow embedded within that start and end point. So in this example here, this is a holiday request process. So someone is requesting leave, and it then goes through a workflow. And at some point there, it comes to an end, whether the request is approved or rejected. We then have state-driven business processes. So a state-driven business process, you'll see it's very different in how it looks and how it's constructed. So state-driven business processes most commonly are found within the Drive module. So here you have different statuses, and within each status you have different predefined actions that can take place. So you do not have a start and an endpoint on a state-driven process. Okay, moving on into the CRM, we have CRM automation. So these are really popular tools within the system here. So if we go into our lead database, on our stages of leads, here you can see the different automations that we have set up. So you can set up automations to communicate to the customer. It could be setting up internal actions and activities, and you can configure those to be set up across the entire sales process. And then linked to the CRM system, we have a feature called Smart Process Automation. So smart process automations allow you to create essentially your own entities within the CRM system. So for example, here Once the deal has been won, we've got an area for onboarding the customer. So here we can see all of the onboarding projects that are being completed once the deal has been won. So it's a completely unique entity built into the CRM. We then have smart scripts as well. So a smart script allows us to run an automation flow like we've seen in leads, but rather than based on stages, we can run those directly on different entities that we select. So let's say here, for example, I might select those two contact records, and then I could select a script to send out a feedback form to those contacts. So the automation blocks are created within the smart script. So you can see there within the BITRIX system, there are many different areas where business processes are created. And we'll just take a bit more of a deep dive look now at where those business processes can be run from. So first of all, if we go into for the HR areas, really, if we come into our feed section, the feed section, this is essentially like your own personal intranet board where we can see all of the latest communications, updates that we are associated to in our BITRIX. And so if I come into the MAR section here, we've got a workflow area. And then within here, we're able to start the creation of a workflow. So in this example, if I wanted to request some holiday leave, for example, I can now go into here and input the details through this form. And we'll take a look at that in more detail shortly. If we go back into the CRM, so we've already seen how on leads and deals on those stages, we can set up automated actions, so automations, but also we can set up triggers. So a trigger will automatically update what stage the lead is at. So in this example here, we've got some marketing campaigns that have been sent out. When they click a link on those campaigns, it automatically moves them to the looking good stage. And another area we can run processes, if we go into an entity, and you could do this in any entity from leads, deals, contacts, you've got your workflow tool here as well. So with this, we could then trigger a business process. So what we looked at earlier on, from a sequential business process point of view, you could run a workflow from here. So I can click in here and start that workflow through the entity record. Okay, if we go into the Drive module, so in the Drive area, in the company Drive, you can turn on business processes. So you just need to make sure that's activated. And then on here, so let's say we go into a document record here, we can run business processes directly on documents as well. So a really popular one here is you might send it to a manager to approve the document before it can be accessed by other colleagues. Okay, and then in tasks and projects, so if we go into our task management area, again, similar to the CRM, really, is the context of automations. Okay, so within here, for every project that you run, what we can do is you can set up stages for your planner and for your Kanban view. And then on those stages, we can automate actions. Okay, so whether that's posting information, it could be changing the stage of the task, or we could then set up outbound webhooks as well on any of those automated processes. So that is a look there at some of the different ways we can run business processes. So we've seen there on HR, CRM, documents, tasks. Now, with the self-hosted version of BITRIX, it is possible to run custom processes. So, for example, you might run a process on a user's profile page, for example. So that's possible through here. Now, you could also run a process on the mailbox rules as well. So a mailbox rule allows us to create an action. So for example, if we go into our services area, Here in the control panel, now if I just explain, the control panel is only available in the on-premise version of Bitrix, so it's specialized for here. We can create rules on mailboxes. So, for example, we could have a mailbox set up so when a new support ticket comes into the system, we could then automatically create a new ticket in the help desk module, as an example. So, with the self hosted, you have the capability to create more complex additional ways of running processes inside the system. Okay, so if you have any questions as we keep going through today's Better Business Processes webinar, please do just add them into the question box and I can get answers available for you. Okay, so let's take a look now at how we can actually create business processes inside the system. So we've seen different areas where we can run a process, but it is important to understand how a process can also be created. So let's go let's go into the CRM system and we'll create a business process for a deal entity. So what we can do here is if we go into the settings and then into CRM settings, what we can then do is if we come into here again, you need to just make sure that you've got the access rights to do this, but we can then go into business processes and then we can click on to add a template. Okay, so this is where we can start to create a new sequential business process. So let's call this deal stage change business process, because what we want to do here is check when the stage of the deal changes, and we're going to run certain actions based on that change. So if you're new to the business process designer tool, here on the right hand side we have all of the different action blocks that are available. Okay, so let's just here we've got a condition. You could add multiple elements to this condition if you wanted to, so you can really personalize this for how you want your workflow to run. What we want to select here is we're going to select the field which is the stage field inside here. So let's just find the stage, and that's going to be equal to consultation booked. So let's now just put that as the title. And then we'll create the second process here. So it's looking all the time at these stages to see if that has been hit. So let's now go into our stage. Let's move to here that the quote has been approved. So 2 stages of this deal pipeline are being looked at here. And then within here, we can then create the different actions. So here, once the consultation is booked, we can add that calendar event into the calendar, and we can send out an email communication as well to the client to confirm that booking. And then once the quote has been approved, then what we can do is we're going to thank the customer for their order. So we have an email set up. We're going to also notify the sales manager that the order. See here how simple it is to create a business process inside the system. So it allows you to completely customize a process. 1 second, I think the screen just stopped sharing there. So let's just enter here. Okay, there we go. So you can really keep your business processes as simplified or make them really complex if you wanted to really automate as much within the business as possible. So we have that option here with the business process designer tool. And if you do need any assistance at all with building out business processes, or if you would like training on how to use the tool, we can provide that training for you. So administrator, but also end user training for staff who then need to actually use those business processes in their day-to-day work on their BITRIX24 system. just contact us, sales@intraface.com. Be happy to assist you. So if I just put that into our chat window here, there we go, sales@intraface.com. Okay, so let's just discuss now how business processes can be triggered. So we've seen within the webinar today how processes, they can be triggered manually, which is what we've looked at so far. But there are other ways that a process can be triggered. So for example, you could have a business process triggered when an update is completed on a process. Let's say when a deal gets updated, or it could be when there is a manual a process, such as if a colleague runs a manual process in the company record, like we saw earlier on. Or you could trigger from an external webhook that triggers into the system. And as we've seen with the self-hosted, such as with a mailbox rule, you have the capability to create additional triggers with a self-hosted system using the API as well. Okay, so let's take a look at a few live examples of a few different business processes that we can run through BITRIX. So let's just jump back into our CRM system. And if we go into our deals area, then what we can see inside here is, so we've got some deals that are currently being worked on inside the system here. And so what we can do is if we click into one of the deals, okay, so we can see the information here. Once we get to the end of the deal process here, what we'll see is we can now automatically create the project inside the onboarding area. So if we go into the onboarding area, we can now see all of the onboarding records have been created inside the record here. And the way that's done is using the automation rules that we have set up. So here we have an automation set up. So as soon as that deal hits the deal one stage, we're creating an onboarding project inside the onboarding smart process automation tool. And we're mapping information from across the system to get all of the key information from the deal into the new SPA record process. Okay, and let's take a look at another type of process. So I've mentioned earlier on about smart scripts. So smart scripts are really useful tools because it allows us to create processes inside the system that can be triggered on specific records inside BITRIX. So here, for example, we can see some scripts that have been set up. So it uses the exact same framework as the automation engine on stages. But for example, here we can see some email communications we're sending out. So it's a welcome process that we're sending out here through the system. So what we can do is I could select, say, specific contacts in the system here. And then from here, I can select the script. So let's say these two particular contacts, they're going to receive our onboarding process. So it starts the script, and then we'll see that script gets completed successfully. And that has now triggered the process on those specific records inside the system here. So you can see now that welcome email has been sent out through the system there. And that process, in terms of a script, you could also perform on deal entities. So here, obviously, we've seen how we can create automations based on stages, but you could run a script directly through the system here as well. So let's say on these deals that I'm working on, I've got a 10% discount that I'm going to send to this specific 4 deals that I'm working on. So it allows you to send out very targeted automated processes through the system. Okay, and then finally, we can see here if we're wanting to request an annual leave, we can then submit that in this form here. So you can see here what fields are mandatory, what fields are optional. So you can control that as the administrators on your BITRIX system. And then I can submit that in the system. That process has now been initiated, and it's going to go to the manager here to approve or to reject inside the system. So that's running that business process inside the system. And again, you can customize the approval process here. So if you wanted, for example, it to go through maybe multiple layers of approval, then you could do that through the system. And we can now approve that. And that will then get added into the absence chart in the employee module here. So for any types of absences that we have, we can see and have that visibility in the organization here. So we can see that annual leave for Sam Smith has been added into the system. Okay, so that is a look at several different business processes that we run. And we've mentioned a few differences between the cloud and the self-hosted, but in terms of the cloud, in terms of the sequential business process designer tool, you would need to have at least a professional cloud version of BITRIX24. But you can then run processes on documents, HR items, CRM and lists. You can create leads from web forms as well as a standard feature. But on the self-hosted, essentially you could create processes on any entity. So we can create an action on a web form, from email, or using the API. So it's more flexible using the self-hosted option. Okay, so in summary today, we've seen how we can run business processes on documents, CRM items, HR, lists. You can use the really simple drag and drop workflow creator tool if we're building them through automations or using the business process designer tool. And we've seen how processes can be triggered manually, automatically, and even by email or an API call with the self-hosted system. Okay, so here are a selection of our up and coming webinars. So we're here every other Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern time, and you can register for those webinars at interface.com/webinars. So thank you very much for your time today. I hope you found today's webinar useful, and I look forward to seeing you all again in the near future. Bye for now.